How to build a 275-gallon rainwater system for under $50. Hook. If you've looked at rain barrels and pre-built water catchment systems lately, you already know the problem: the prices are out of control. A lot of people want a backup water system at home, but they get discouraged the minute they see $500 setups being pushed as the only serious option. In this video, I'm going to show you a practical, low-cost way to build a 275-gallon rainwater system using simple materials, a food-grade IBC tote, and a basic catchment surface without turning this into an expensive hobby. Intro. Welcome back to the Mountain Home channel. This video is for the budget-conscious prepper, the homeowner trying to increase resilience, and the person who wants useful water storage without spending a fortune. We're keeping this practical and anti-hype. The goal here is not to build a perfect off-grid homestead water network in one afternoon. The goal is to create a simple rain catchment system that can help with emergency water storage, garden use, basic utility needs, and preparedness planning at a price normal people can actually manage. Before we get into the build, one quick reality check. Check your local rules for rainwater collection, and do not assume collected rainwater is automatically safe to drink. A low-cost catchment system is great for storage and non-potable use, but potable use requires proper treatment and safe handling. Now let's walk through the biggest mistake people make with rainwater systems, what actually matters, and how to build a solid low-cost setup step by step. Challenge. The challenge is simple: most people want more emergency water on hand, but they assume storage has to start with expensive commercial products. They see decorative rain barrels, branded connectors, polished stands, specialty diverters, and complete kits, and the cost starts piling up fast. That's where a lot of beginners get stuck. They start by shopping retail instead of thinking like a builder. They buy small, expensive containers before solving the real problem, which is this: how do you capture a decent amount of water cheaply, safely, and simply? A single small rain barrel may look nice, but from a preparedness standpoint it often doesn't move the needle very much. If you're trying to add serious backup capacity for washing, flushing, gardening, cleaning, or emergency reserve, volume matters. That's why a 275-gallon IBC tote can be such a strong value play when you find a clean food-grade one locally. Mistake. The big mistake is paying for appearance and convenience instead of storage volume and function. A lot of expensive rain setups are built to look finished before they're built to work. That's fine if you're doing a landscaping project. But for preparedness, the priorities are different. You want a container that holds meaningful volume. You want a catchment surface that is cheap to replace. You want a stable base. You want a way to control overflow. And you want a setup that is easy to inspect, clean, and use. That's why the low-cost approach works so well. If you can get a free or inexpensive food-grade IBC tote, add a basic tarp or other catchment surface, secure simple support points, and route water into storage, you can create a surprisingly capable system without buying into a premium rain barrel marketing package. The point here is not that every cheap build is automatically good. The point is that expensive does not equal prepared. A simple system that holds more water and is maintained properly will often beat a prettier system with less capacity and higher cost. Lesson: what actually matters? So what actually matters in a rainwater system? First, container safety. If you're using an IBC tote, it should be a food-grade tote with a known or trusted prior use. If you don't know what was in it before, walk away. Cheap water storage is not worth contamination risk. Second, placement. A full 275-gallon tote is heavy. Very heavy. That means your base needs to be level, stable, and able to support the load safely. A tote on unstable soil, soft mud, or a weak improvised platform is asking for trouble. Third, catchment efficiency. You don't need a fancy setup to catch rain. You need a clean collection surface and a way to direct water into the tote. Depending on your situation, that may be a section of roofline, a gutter downspout, a tarp configured with proper slope, or a temporary shelter-style catchment feeding into the opening. Fourth, debris control. leaves, dirt, insects, and roof debris can all end up in your water. At the very least, you want a basic screening step to keep larger contaminants out. Fifth, overflow management. When the tote fills, the water has to go somewhere. If you ignore overflow, you can create erosion, mud, foundation problems, or a mess right where you don't want it. Sixth, intended use. Are you collecting this water for gardening? Toilet flushing? Cleaning? Emergency reserve? Short-term utility? Or are you building a system that may later connect to a more advanced treatment process? The answer affects how carefully you build, clean, and use the system. Application: the under $50 build. Let's walk through the practical under $50 version. Step 1: Find the tote. The most important money-saving move in this whole project is sourcing a used food-grade IBC tote locally. In some cases, people find them cheap. In some cases, they get them free from farms, food operations, or local listings. But this is where you do not cut corners on safety. If the tote has an uncertain history, keep looking. Step 2: Choose the location. Put the tote somewhere accessible, level, and close enough to your collection point that routing water is simple. You also want to think ahead about how you'll draw water out of it. Don't trap the valve where you can't reach it. Step 3: Build the base. Low cost does not mean sloppy. Use a compacted, level surface or other sturdy support that can handle the weight. The goal is stability first, not speed. Step 4: Create the catchment surface. If you already have a usable downspout, that may be your cheapest option. If not, a properly sloped tarp can work as a temporary or budget collection surface. The key is tension, angle, and drainage direction. You want rainwater moving intentionally toward your collection point, not pooling in the middle. Step 5: Add simple screening. Even a basic mesh screen at the entry point can help reduce leaves, bugs, and larger debris. This does not make the water drink safe. It just keeps the storage cleaner and easier to manage. Step 6: Plan overflow before the first storm. Create a controlled overflow path that sends extra water away from structures, walkways, and erosion-prone areas. Step 7: Protect the stored water. Keep the system as covered as possible to reduce debris, algae growth, mosquito issues, and contamination. Sun, heat, and exposure make a neglected system worse over time. Step 8: Define the use case. For many people, the smartest use of low-cost rainwater storage is non-potable backup water, garden irrigation, washing tools, rinsing gear, emergency toilet flushing, and utility use during disruptions. If you ever intend to use collected rainwater as drinking water, that requires separate treatment, storage discipline, and safe purification methods. Why this beats a small expensive barrel? Here's why this kind of build can outperform a far more expensive entry-level rain barrel setup. First, volume. One tote gives you meaningful storage. Preparedness is not just about owning a system. It is about owning enough capacity to matter. Second, cost efficiency. Instead of putting your budget into decorative hardware and branding, you put it into actual water capacity. Third, flexibility. An IBC tote setup can be temporary, seasonal, upgraded later, or integrated into a larger preparedness plan. You can refine it as you learn. Fourth, practicality. A low-cost system built around basic principles is easier to repair because it is usually made from common parts and simple materials. This is the pattern you should notice across preparedness in general. Affordable systems often win when they focus on function over appearance. Common problems to avoid. There are a few common problems that can ruin a good cheap setup. 1. Using a tote with unknown chemical history. 2. Placing the tote on an unstable base. 3. Forgetting overflow. 4. Assuming screened rainwater is automatically safe to drink. 5. Building a catchment surface that sags, pools, or tears under weather. 6. Placing the system where maintenance is awkward, so it gets neglected. A cheap system only stays cheap if it does not create expensive problems later. Realistic expectations. Also keep realistic expectations. This is not magic water independence in a box. Rainfall varies. Collection efficiency varies. Cleanliness varies. Seasons vary. And your local climate changes what kind of performance you'll actually get. What this system does give you is a low-cost starting point, a practical reserve that helps you store more water at home and become less dependent on the assumption that water will always be instantly available. That matters. Because for most people, preparedness doesn't fail from lack of interest. It fails from the belief that every useful system has to be expensive. Conclusion. So if you want to build a 275-gallon rainwater system for under $50, the winning approach is simple: source a safe food-grade tote, place it on a solid base, use a low-cost catchment method, screen out larger debris, control overflow, and be honest about how you intend to use the water. Don't start with the prettiest setup. Start with the setup that stores meaningful water, fits your space, and can actually be maintained. If you build the fundamentals right, you can always improve the system later. But if you overspend early on style instead of capacity, you may end up with a rain system that looks prepared and still doesn't do much for you. CTA. Prepare for anything. Visit https://preparedpathways.com for expert tips, guides, and resources to build your emergency food supply today. Get your emergency survival kit here. https://shorturl.it/1lnpr. If you want more practical preparedness content built for real budgets, stay with the Mountain Home channel. We focus on systems that work in the real world, not expensive hype that leaves ordinary people behind.